Hey, this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowigowen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. And this time I was made to watch A Little Princess.
A Little Princess, as opposed to The Little Princess.
Yes.
It's the 1995 movie that, as far as I'm concerned, ushered in the era of every girl wanting to be a princess. I came of age before that. There were no princesses in my household.
Never.
Did I miss out? I don't know. But anyway, it's the 1995 adaptation of Frances Hodgson Burnett's novel, A Little Princess, with some significant liberties taken, which we will explain. There are, as I mentioned last episode, there's several adaptations of this. This one I think strays the most from the original novel, which I think is probably written in like the 1880s or 90s, something like that. This is by the author of The Secret Garden, if you're familiar with that. So very British, and for starters, this is set in New York City. So from the jump, we're having a different.
I was going to say, I was getting real Secret Garden vibes from this.
Yeah. Well, what do you know about The Secret Garden? Have you read it?
We read it in school.
Really?
And we watched the movie. One of the movies, I can't remember, but yeah, we read it in school.
Okay. Well, that disarms me a little bit of one of the things that I wanted to bring up.
Well, I will tell you, I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah.
I have some flashes of like the aesthetics of it from the movie. And that's like it. So I retained nothing from reading Secret Garden.
Well, it is, Secret Garden vibes, as in a child and a little girl as the subject, and she spent time in India. And beyond that, the two books are very different. So for those who don't know the story, or if you're thinking, wait, I know the book, how is the movie different? Here is the IMDb synopsis. When her father enlists to fight for the British in World War I, young Sarah Crewe goes to New York to attend the same boarding school her late mother attended. She soon clashes with the severe headmistress, Miss Minchin, who attempts to stifle Sarah's creativity and sense of self-worth. Sarah's belief that every girl is a princess is tested to the limit, however, when word comes that her father was killed in action and his estate has been seized by the British government. Does that sound like what we just watched?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then a lot more that we will discuss as we go.
Yes.
But we wanted to get through that quickly because we have a special guest.
Yep.
On this episode.
Yes. We've had our son Will come in and watch several of the movies that Dave has brought us that he watched when he was younger. Well, now we're going to have him watch one that I watched when I was younger and see what he thinks. And here's Will. Welcome back, Will.
Hi.
We got you back sooner than we expected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all the other movies that we've shown you have been ones from Dad's youth, but this one was from mine. What did you think of this one?
It was cool.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah. There were more funny parts than I remembered. I was doing a lot of giggling. How about you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slamming into the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see that character run into the door too, because she's awful.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Good. Yes.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you about, so this obviously is a story about girls.
Okay.
Or the main characters are girls. And I feel like a lot of times boys are told that they shouldn't read books about girls. They should only read books about boys.
That's stupid.
But yeah, okay. So yeah, so that's not something that we've ever done in our house. We've read you books about boys and girls and both. But yeah, what do you think? Why do you think that boys think that?
I don't know. Because ew, they play with a toy. That's not what I like. Ew.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you suppose girls get told the same thing? You shouldn't read books about boys, just about girls.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So what was your favorite part about this?
I don't really have like a favorite part. I liked all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was always a happy ending.
Yeah.
And yeah, the
except for Mention.
Well, but she got her comeuppance though, right? She ended up being a chimney sweep.
Yeah.
Right. When the bad guy has to do something demeaning at the end, that is still considered a happy ending.
Oh,
Although
not a happy ending for her though.
Right, but it's a happy ending in that she's getting what she deserves, and hopefully she'll learn from it.
Yeah, she probably won't. But
Probably
well,
won't.
my question is, because chimney sweeps were generally children because they could fit in the chimneys. She's a skinny lady, but she's not that skinny. So
Yeah.
how is she going to go in the chimneys? I don't really understand how that's going to work, but that's for. Do you suppose her sister is happy now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. Her sister ran off with the milkman.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How do you suppose she ended up owning that school?
Who?
Miss Minchin.
Inheritance.
Oh, yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Does she seem like she was a pretty good teacher?
No.
I didn't think so either.
She teach nothing.
Well, I thought she was really kind of mean when the Ermengarde didn't know her times tables, right? Do any of your teachers act like that?
No, not really.
Yeah. Yeah, she was. Ermengarde didn't know, and she says, "I'm sorry, I studied." And Miss Minchin is like, "Oh, really? I don't think you did. I don't believe you." Like, that's terrible.
I don't think you should be working here.
Right. She's pretty bad. I think at the time they weren't so strict about teachers being kind to students, but still.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, do you think that you'd like to go to a boarding school like that?
Oh.
No? Oh, see, I always thought it would be great.
No. I don't want to sleep in the one place that I don't like. No.
What if you had a nice room?
I'll just get someone to take that room and replace my room in my house.
Oh, okay. So you're never going to go to boarding school.
Yeah.
Okay. That's actually the plan, is for you not to go to boarding school, but
Good.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, so Sarah says a couple times, all girls are princesses. What does that make you think of?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Are you expecting some deep, profound answers from me?
I don't know. Maybe. Sometimes you're profound.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But not this time.
No.
No.
No. I don't know. It sounds like, I don't know. I don't know. It sounds like a segment of words.
Of a segment of words. Okay.
Stranded together to mean something. I don't have an answer for this, really.
Okay. Well, all right. Do you think that kids today should see this movie?
Sure.
Do you think that boys should see this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And girls too?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think they're going to find it funny or sad or scary, or what do you think?
It's up to them.
Up to them. Okay. All right. Do you have anything else to say?
I knew that whatever his name was going to be Sarah's dad.
Yeah, I don't think that was really meant to be a surprise. I don't remember.
I mean, like, after the first few
surprised.
scenes with him, it was obvious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a happy ending.
Yeah.
We wish for happy endings like that for everybody. But yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thanks for watching the movie with us, and thanks for talking to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Will. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
And that's Will's take on A Little Princess.
Yes.
I think this was a little less, little underwhelming to him compared to some of the movies that you've shown him, Dave, which is, not surprising.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a different kind of movie. So,
Yes.
The movies I've shown him were like goofy,
Yes.
had silly stuff, and, were a little more lighthearted in places than this. So, a difficult.
Right.
A difficult interview there but I think he got his points across.
Yes. Well, and I am glad to hear him say that the idea of boys don't want to read stories about girls is silly, because that is something that we have really tried to do as parents, but I think that attitude is still prevalent.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think when you asked him that, I think the answer to that is where that comes from is from the parents.
Yeah.
And he didn't. That's a foreign concept to him because we didn't teach him that.
Right. Well,
So,
I've gone out of my way to read books to him that had female characters, sometimes because I loved the books when I was this age, and sometimes like, okay, let's add some girls to the mix. Yeah, I just think that's a ridiculous notion, which is why I was surprised that you had read The Secret Garden in school, because it's a girl book. So I'm surprised that it would be in the curriculum. Also, we never read anything like that when I was in school. So I'm surprised that that particular book, but also just even that genre was in there. How old were you?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like when I think about what we read in school, we read the Crucible.
Yeah.
We read Huck Finn.
Yeah.
We read The Secret Garden.
Huh.
We read the book about the boy who goes blind from the firecracker,
which is hilarious. You guys, I read this, like, I want to say I read it on my own. It was just in like a box of used books that my mom got for me. It's called Follow My Leader. Let me tell you, if you come across it, you should read it, if only because there is a scene when, so he goes blind from fireworks. That's not a spoiler.
He's playing with a firecracker, and you know.
That's not a spoiler. It happens like one chapter in. And he goes away to a school to learn how to work with a guide dog.
Yeah.
And I will not spoil the full surprise for you, but the staff there play pranks on the blind kids.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's terrible. And I don't remember when this was set. I want to say the 50s or the 60s. Like it was a while ago. So, but yeah, they play pranks on blind children.
Yeah.
I'm still horrified by that 30 years after reading this book, but it cracks me up that you read that in school. That's delightful to me.
We read the one, what is it? Boo Radley.
Oh,
Mockingbird.
Yeah.
We read that. And I'm sure we read other stuff, but those are the ones that I remember. So maybe the Randolph County school board is surprising you a little bit.
They are, kind of. So they need to make a movie of Follow My Leader.
Oh,
because they still need the lesson about firework safety.
Still, yeah.
You'll go blind and probably lose a hand.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, back to A Little Princess. So, so you were saying you got Secret Garden vibes, unsurprisingly. Same author, same time period, et cetera, et cetera.
A lot of sense.
So, yeah. Well, I'm glad that nobody on this podcast has a problem with the idea of, boys reading books with girls as main characters. So, boom, mission accomplished. Good.
Yes,
done.
We changed the world.
Check that off. Yay.
One child at a time.
Good for us. Let's see. Yeah, so this movie changes a fair bit from the book, and I think in large part it's shaped by the time when it was made. Mm-hmm. In the book, Sarah does not befriend a black servant girl and does not say to her, "I think of you as a sister."
Right.
In the book, there is a character named Becky, and she is a servant in the household, in the school. And they do bond when Sarah is put into servitude. But when they leave the house together, Becky is going to be Sarah's maid.
Oh, naturally.
And I'm just thinking about that now. I'm just like, oh, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. Literature. Come on. But, when this was written, like what, 1880, 90, whatever, like
right.
You couldn't have imagined anything different. So
yes.
This is very well. And there's a scene early on in the book. So all the girls at school know who Becky is and know not to talk to her. And one of the girls just says, "Oh, that's Becky. We don't talk to her because she has dark skin." And Sarah's like, "Well, why does that matter?" And the little girl, "I don't know. Doesn't it?" Like, it's very much like, these children are innocent. They just need to be told they can be friends with somebody. And there's no, like.
Right. Even though Sarah's coming from Imperial India.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, I wrote in my notes, Sarah is a little bit too good to be true because, she's extremely wealthy, but is very democratic, loves everybody, even people who are straight up bitchy to her. Well, she doesn't love Miss Minchin, but other than that, she loves everybody. She's cheerful most of the time. Like, you're just like, you can't be. There's actually a lot of heroines from around this time who are the same way. Like Anne of Green Gables strikes me as the same way, and I love Anne, always will. but wow, she's a lot. And the whole thing of like, your imagination can get you through anything is present in those books too.
Yeah, a lot of little girls being told to endure hardship with their imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like I said at the beginning, I feel like this whole thing of all girls are princesses is real cute when you're making the movie. And then like now you look back at princesses have just embedded little girl culture. Now, I'm blaming Disney for that, not this movie necessarily, but the whole idea of, and I don't know, like that was nothing that I grew up with. My parents didn't treat me no one called me a princess. No one treated me like I was more special than anybody else. And I don't think that was necessarily bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know, as someone who, and maybe Sarah would feel would feel pity for me. Your father never told you were a princess. That's the root of your problems. Because what we're getting at, she has a scene with Miss Minchin, the terrible headmistress. And she's like, didn't your father ever tell you that all girls are princesses? And Miss Minchin looks like she's been like, that's her Achilles heel. Like,
Yeah.
And as an adult, I'm looking at that going, oh no, my father didn't love me. My father was cruel. My father, and like, we don't get into any of that because it's a G-rated movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot of that there. So I don't know, maybe she would think that of me too. But I feel like the whole princess thing is just, it's this like delusional entitlement, and it's a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think it's grown like exponentially since this movie.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think it maybe has reached a point where we plateaued.
God, I hope so.
But yeah, yeah, I mean, I can't comment on it too much as a prince,
right?
Not a prince, but yeah, but that's actually what I was thinking is like nobody's telling every boy they're a prince.
Well, like, yeah, well, you don't need to because you're a white man. So,
well, sure.
Well, yeah, and I'm trying to remember. I feel like the girls who would have been watching this, who were young in 1995,
yeah,
they grew up with a much more gender neutral childhood than girls today do. I think with the rise of, amnio and anatomy scans, and you could find out the gender of your baby earlier.
Oh, okay.
And consumerism being what it is, everything is pink and blue, and people live out their fantasies for their future children before their children are even born. And it's lots of, everything is extremely gendered, and girls get the princess message early and boys get the trucks and dirt and sports message early.
Yeah.
So the whole princess thing, like you said, has grown exponentially. And I think that's part of it. But girls who were watching this when it came out would not have had that same experience. So I react a little bit negatively to the idea that all girls are princesses. But in 1995, I might not have.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like we were coming off of quite a lot of princess. Like I get
movies.
I get your point that it's like from pre-birth now.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was pretty much from birth in the 80s and 90s.
Well, possibly. I think also, though, I don't know. I mean, like when I was born, my parents were like, well, we don't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl, so let's get everything in neutral colors and we can reuse it. And, and I would say up until we were 2 or 3, I wore gender neutral stuff, and my brother wore my stuff when he was that age. And then when we got to the age where like he couldn't wear my hand-me-downs, et cetera, then we branched out into our own stuff. I still had to wear boys' shirts,
yes,
which I didn't like.
Yeah.
Because they were ugly.
But your life experience has told you that your parents existed in this world of like practical frugality.
That's true.
That most of the rest of the world didn't live in.
That's true. I was outside of time. Yeah, it was 1977, but it wasn't really.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else was playing video games, and you were rolling a hoop down the street with a stick.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah. So I think your experience is the outlier. I played with Barbies when I was a kid, because we lived with my female cousin for a while, and like everybody just assumed I was gay because of that. Like, you know, and but I was still into He-Man, and all that sort of stuff, G.I. Joe and Transformers.
I love how nobody ever, I mean, considering that, you know, Barbie has pretty nice boobs. No one ever is like, well, he's playing with those Barbies, so he's really, you know.
Barbie has a very 1950s physique about her, but yes.
They're large is what I'm saying. And they're, you know.
Conical.
But everybody assumes that a boy who plays with Barbies is gay and not a boy is like
but
spending
also
time with women.
In truth, I will say I was not playing with Barbies. I was playing with Ken.
Yeah.
So that might have contributed to it. Like, oh, he's dressing up this man and going out of his way to make sure that his outfit goes.
The whole, you know, this is taking us down a tangent, but the whole thing about, you know, assuming sexuality based on the toys or the activities that somebody does, I think it's in Bring It On. Somebody points at the football players are making fun of male cheerleaders, and the cheerleaders are like, you hang out with other men and you shower together and you slap each other's butts and you're making fun of me because you think I'm gay? Like, how does that even work? And, you know,
but I mean, like, you know, She-Ra was the Princess of Power, and, you know, we had Strawberry Shortcake and Rainbow Brights, and you know, while Strawberry Shortcake not technically a princess, she might as well be.
She smelled pretty good.
And same for Rainbow Bright, and you know, so it was I think there was a culture of but you are right in that Disney really got it rolling, but also. You got to understand that someone who was 10 or 12 or, you know, maybe the appropriate age for this movie in 95 when it came out, they're part of the generation where Disney re-released all of their movies into theaters. And so they had Cinderella, they had Snow White, they had, you know, because all of those Disney movies came back into theaters in the 80s and sort of started that march towards, then they had Jasmine and they had, you know, and they had Belle, like, and The Little Mermaid, like, you know, the kids that were in the right age range for this were pretty deep into the princess sphere. I would say as much, if not more than kids. I feel like there are more parents like us. You know, your parents went with a gender neutral sort of thing for practical reasons. Yeah. And financial reasons. We went with a gender neutral thing for, you know, social and
I think for my parents it was ideological too. But
sure, but much more. Well, it strikes me that it was much more, considering the fact that that your mother continued to buy you boys shirts because they were cheaper.
Yes.
You know, even when she knew you didn't like it.
I don't know if she knew. I don't know if I ever thought that I could say that I didn't like them. To be clear, these were like boys' school uniform shirts, like Oxford cloth things, and
which doesn't matter. Like,
but they buttoned on the wrong side, and they were stiff and ugly. And I just wanted like a soft cotton Peter Pan collar, like everyone else.
Right. Like, there's no reason that school uniform shirts need to be gendered, but but we've managed to do that anyway. Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily. I'm just saying, like, you know, there's probably an interesting investigation to be done looking at the amount of explicitly female oriented stuff through the 80s and 90s and through like the 2010s and now into the 2020s.
I'm sure there's multiple PhD dissertations that have been done about it. So,
pop culture.
Since I was neither a young child in this time period nor a parent, I feel like I'm sort of grasping at straws and putting together observations that may or may not be a complete thing. But anyway,
this was definitely in the crest of the wave of princess stuff in the 90s, like I said, with like The Little Mermaid and Jasmine and all of those other Disney movies being re-released and all of the other stuff that had gone on through the 80s and 90s. Like, this was a sort of a cresting of the wave of princess stuff. Yeah. Maybe it continued to crest even farther, you know, into the 2000s.
Well, I think it probably did as Disney realized what a cash cow they had on their hands. But I have heard from my friends who have daughters that no matter what you do, they're all going to go through a princess phase just because you live in the world. You can never bring anything Disney into your house, and they see it on a, someone's sippy cup or their grandmother. It's just in the,
Elsa did nobody any favors who was trying to fight that. Yeah. And we had the exact, the boy experience where, we gave him all of the different options and he gravitated towards the trucks and the construction equipment books and the ones about, heavy machinery and, when given the option, he ended up with the Mighty Machines and Hard Hat Harrys of the world.
Oh, I forgot about Hard Hat Harry. Jeez.
When he had any option that he wanted. So, there's, I'm sure, again, the scholarly papers to, on whether or not some of that is just innate or not. And I'm sure that the answer is it's not, because it's, like you said, it's absorbed. As much as we were doing our best to offer him both sides of the fence, we were not in control of everything he was exposed to 24/7. So he got exposed to stereotypes.
Right. And I think there was something in me that was a little bit relieved when he gravitated toward, quote, boy stuff, and I was much more willing to provide that than when he was like, I want this Dora shirt. And I bought it for him, but I had to have a serious talk with myself. Like, this is fine. This is fine. So for me anyway, I gave in to the boy stuff more than I did to the girl stuff. Anyway,
and I say that he gravitated towards boy stuff, but like he gravitated towards a sort of rough adventure thing. So Dora, who is, a girl who is doing these adventures and running around, like he never saw, like he was not a Diego kid. Like he didn't need that boy alternative to Dora. He identified with Dora because she was having adventures and it didn't matter that she was a girl, and he didn't see anything wrong with a girl having these sorts of adventures because there isn't anything wrong with it.
Well, and until it's proven otherwise, I will believe that the sole reason for Diego existing is that they were like, we need this same thing, but for boys. Like, even though Dora is plenty for
it's boys. Plenty for boys.
Anyway,
yeah. And I do think that's one of those things where we're in the transition period, where you still have to say like, oh yeah, here's a boy version. Like she has a boy cousin, and he's tough and. I think hopefully Dora will be looked back on as like a good moment of progress because it wasn't ever about her being a girl, and she tackled all these challenges and had these adventures and, sort of, and forgetting about all of the Latino, putting that out there and, the Spanish stuff and just, all of the good things that she was modeling. I think it was great to see this cartoon where nobody batted an eye. Well, hopefully the kids
I'm sure some people batted
parents
an eye.
Sure batted an eye, but that you were able to bring kids into it. And like I said, for like we've been saying throughout this episode, for our son now to just be like, this thing is not for girls or boys. It's for everybody. Like, cool. Yeah. Like
it's about a girl, but it's for everybody.
Right. Yeah. So we're as the book authority, because we went off on a tangent. Anything else to highlight on the differences we
well, the main thing is that in the book her father really did die.
Okay.
So it's set
no super happy
like 20, 25, 30 years before, and he gets yellow fever and actually does die, but the person it's still the concept of there's someone in the house next door who is her eventual like savior, but it turns out that he is the friend who told him to invest in these diamond mines, which is why that's where he was going. That's why he put Sarah in that. Well,
blood diamonds
between the diamonds and India, like there's a lot of ickiness, but different time. But the friend is racked with guilt because he sent him to this. And I don't remember all the ins and outs of the stuff, and the friend is convalescing at the house next door. And there's several children who live there, and they become fascinated with Sarah because they see her as a servant going on. And so there's lots of other, and then that family also has an Indian servant. Also, his name is Ram Das in the book, but she refers to him as a Lascar, which I don't know. Is that a terrible slur now, or is that like just a?
Just assume it is. It's almost certainly.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm going to beep it out just to be safe.
I'm sorry I said the word. I don't know. Or is it like is it
like a term of familiarity,
or
like
is it like
I'm familiar with your culture,
or is it like a caste thing, or is it a like is it similar to in the U.S. we have Navajo and Comanche,
right?
And
instead of saying Native American,
know.
You're calling them by their he's a
but. And they make more of, obviously in the book they can go into more detail on some things. They make more of, he's very light on his feet, and so he can cross between the houses, and he brings in all the stuff.
There's a lot of like in the movie. There's a lot of just like, oh, I don't know, just assume like when they're standing across from each other, spinning in the snow. Like, is that a dream? Are they having like a mind meld? Is this like a mysticism thing where they're spinning around in the snow and bowing to each other? And
I don't understand.
That's like, did they make a friendship bond there forever or what? Like what happened?
At the very end of the movie. So, Sarah's father is in the house next door. He's lost his memory. He doesn't remember anything. She finds her way into the house and sees him and is like, oh my God, Papa, you don't, and he's like, I'm sorry, I don't know you. And she's dragged away. And Ram Dass, the Indian servant, just sort of stares at him menacingly. And then all of a sudden he's like, I remember. And I was just like, I would like an Indian man to just come and stare severely at me when I forget things. And then I remember. That would be nice. And he's got a little capuchin monkey too.
Yeah.
Capuchin monkeys, by the way, were having a moment at this time because this was when they still had the monkey on Friends. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, because Outbreak came out about this time too. And there was, so like capuchin monkeys were all over. Now I think we don't see them anymore.
No.
I don't know why.
It's probably because it's cruel to keep them.
Possibly. Also, probably, do they throw their shit like other monkeys?
They're usually in a diaper. So, probably, they just probably can't resist.
Yeah.
I love how, like, from a filmmaking perspective, like, the way the shot is, like, he just sort of comes into the shot.
Yeah. And he's
just, he, like, walks up to him, like, with a purpose, and then just, like, his head just, like, slides into the shot. And he's just like inches from his face, and he just like stares at him with his
you can
perfectly waxed
see
mustache.
Like the mind vibes. And then the father runs out, Sarah.
He's like, wait,
I remember.
Like he doesn't even say anything. Like
it's not even like think. Nothing.
And I thought, like, because it's filmmaking, that the locket was going to play a bigger part.
I thought so too. Like, here it's your picture in it. And I have it.
There's a locket in this movie that is a plot point here and there.
Yeah.
And it's given too much emphasis not to ultimately mean anything in the movie.
Right.
It's really weird. There's a locket that belonged to Sarah's mother that her father gives her when he goes off to war, and it has a picture of her father and mother in it, and it's heart shaped. And part of as part of the becoming a servant process, Sarah has to give up all her possessions, including this locket, which only has sentimental value.
Yeah, and she never looks at it and says, "Oh, I will sell this."
Oh yeah, this is pure gold.
Minchin is a fucking bitch.
Yes, like when her real mask comes off.
Oh my!
When the mask comes off to reveal the real her.
God, she's just cruel for the sake of like. Oh, anyway.
And that's the funny thing too, because the turn with her comes later than you expect. Because I expected it to be like because they bring Sarah into the school and they set her up in this huge room with all of her toys around her and all of her dolls.
In the book, she has her own maid.
Wow. But I expected, like, the moment that the dad's carriage was out of sight, her just to get drug out of that room and thrown into like a dorm with every, with these lines of beds and every girl in the same, I expected, I guess I've been conditioned for it to be much more of like a, like a turn but the turn comes when the money's not there anymore.
Right. Yeah. I will give Minchin that. She is going to, if the money comes in, she's going to spend it on your kid. It's just when the money's not there, she's, which is, I guess modern villains would have been from the jump, would have been cashing the checks and, like, well, here's a packet of oatmeal.
She has like a sliver of decency. Yeah. Like, well, you're paying me to take care of your kid. So I'm probably charging you 3 times as much as I need to.
Yes.
Even to take care of your kid in this level of luxury.
And I won't give them any affection whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah, the Lottie character, she's fantastic because she throws tantrums on command.
Yeah.
She's like 6 or 7. In the book, she's 4. Can you imagine sending a 4-year-old to boarding school?
Yeah. Well, but at that time, assuming it's even earlier than the movie, the mother is gone.
Well,
the father is.
I imagine that's like, I don't know what to do. So, But different time, different notions about childhood, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the whole thing about the father is actually dead in the book. That's a major thing. But then this friend her father's friend, she reunites with him, and he's got her father's money because he didn't do anything wrong. He just there's something, I don't remember.
Somehow.
And they go off, and Becky comes with her to be her servant.
No, naturally.
Which is just awful.
The movie, it feels cleaner in the movie. Yes. It feels like less to explain when there's already a lot to explain. Because like we were saying, she has this mystic connection with the Indian servant who is portrayed more like a less like a servant, like a house servant, and more like a butler, like like a I don't know what the word would be for it, but like
a valet.
Kind of like that. Yeah.
Well, and he came over on the boat with them at the very beginning, and you're kind of like, why did he?
Yeah, like that just seemed like a weird. Because I was like, when Sarah and her father are dancing, and this. He just slides into the frame,
just looms,
and just and like I'm like, okay, this is the villain of the movie,
right? Nope, he's the hero.
Indian guy in this traditional dress with a monkey.
Looking this is severe. This is good.
Like I don't know where this movie's going. He's got this perfectly waxed
which he
mustache.
Can twirl if he wants to.
I don't know where this movie is going, but clearly this guy is gonna be our main villain.
And
this.
Then no.
So there's a lot of stuff is rushed.
Yes.
And like the bonding between them, I think, is rushed.
They just stare at each other a lot.
through the window. And the monkey, all of a sudden the monkey is her friend.
Yeah.
And so having to explain the whole plot point with the friend, and like that would have taken so much more time, and would have been done so ham-fistedly as to have, made things even more rocky.
That's true.
So so probably for the best that they made that transition.
I can. Well, and then you don't have to get into the diamond mines and this and that and So
even though in '95 nobody cared yet about the diamond mines and all that.
I was thinking, why does she have an American accent and he's British, and what? But that quibble aside, this whole thing of moving it to World War I, that does kind of make sense, but.
Yeah, it keeps it in the close enough time frame, for the technologies and everything. Yeah. Like putting it in modern day, there's like a lot more you'd have to deal a lot more questions. Well, even modern day '95, there's a lot more questions.
I wondered. Well, so we watched the Santa Claus the movie, and there was a homeless kid who just lived on the street, and it was in the '80s. But I was thinking, in 1914, could you really just have a child arrested because you said that they stole something, even though she can be like, that's my parents and the locket. Miss Minchin says she's going to turn Sarah into the police for stealing the locket, which was actually hers. And the police actually come. It's like 5.
Yeah.
5 for a 10-year-old.
Burly Irish cops.
Yeah. Would they do that in 1914? I feel they were becoming a little more progressive, but
1914 New York, I'm sure it was,
I suppose.
It was
I want to think that things were getting better, but maybe not.
Yeah.
But then I think of Homeless Joe, and Homeless Joe was
So.
No burly Irish cops were going to save him either. No. So I wrote down views on India, and we touched on this with Ram Dass is just kind of mystical. He's just sort of shows up and looks at people and things happen. And
the India stuff in this movie is very, like, it really does feel like it was written in the late 1800s or something, with this like fascination with Indian mysticism and
the story that she's telling throughout the book, you see throughout the whole movie, she's telling scraps of the story of this prince and princess who are, stuff happens and they're reunited. And fun fact, it turns out in those scenes, the actors that's her father, and then the actress who posed for the picture of her mother, which was kind of sweet. The actor there is painted blue, which makes me think that it's a Hindu god
possibly
that it's based on. I don't know enough about Hindu or Indian culture at all to know for sure, but I feel a little uncomfortable with we're using this Hindu myth to make a movie for white children to be entertained and not crediting it as such. That's a little icky to me, but that's the number, we just talk about India as a whole continent, and there's a lot of not great.
And it's used as a part of the story and the backstory and so it's not a movie that can really reflect on have any musings on the situation in India at the time.
Well, no.
So it's difficult, and I think they're just I mean, I would assume it would be really difficult to remove all of that from the book or the movie to like make a version of it that is the more sensitive, so to speak. It is weird, and it is a little, co-opting their, myths and mysticism and their, culture.
It's tricky because on the one hand, if you don't take the risk of doing any co-opting, then you have a movie where everybody's white. Yeah, and sometimes I'm like, well, which is better? You introduce the idea of other cultures and just, I don't know. That's probably a very white liberal thing of me to say.
And it's very sort of like, you probably haven't seen Poltergeist 2.
No.
But Poltergeist 2 introduces this whole Native American angle because originally there's some allusion to Native American this and that, even though I think that the cemetery that the house is built on in the first movie is just like straight up a regular cemetery. But eventually there are allusions to like Native American stuff, which is just a like code word for mysticism and them being able to have license. And it
about appropriation there.
And it goes way too far in that movie in a way that I don't think it does in this movie. Like, I think if you put yourself in a 1995 mindset, I feel like this movie was being what it thought was respectful to the culture.
Yeah.
I think an Indian person would say differently, but I think at the time they thought like we're using one of their cultural stories as a through line for this movie. And clearly she treats it with reverence and respect. And, there's this character who, while he is portrayed in this mystic sort of way, otherwise he is, treated respectfully. We're just not even mentioning any of the imperialism stuff. But, her time in India seems very pleasant and she looks back on it fondly. Like,
and I think she's respectful to other people with dark skin, so she wasn't marked by that.
I think 1995, someone would try to make a point that they're doing it respectfully, and when you compare it to things like Poltergeist 2, they are being tremendously respectful. But we have just learned since then that no matter how respectful you're being, like you're wearing someone else's culture as using it as a throwaway plot point, like that's not actually respectful, no matter how much you think it is.
Frequently when there's movies like this where, it's white protagonists, mostly white characters, and there are people of color in there somewhere, you kind of want to say to the directors and the producers, like, more than just white people are going to watch this, right? Like, you've got to consider the viewpoints of everybody, which seems to have only occurred to people and like 15 years ago. I mean, obviously not. There were people who were yelling and screaming, like, consider other points of view. Even when this was made and long before. But
and I think some progress has been made. Much still needs to be made. We're not the people to solve this.
And frankly, we are not enlightened on all of this. Like it's not like we really know what we're talking about. I know enough to be like, ooh, but do I know enough to fix it? Nope.
Hopefully you come to this podcast for our like like weirdly misinformed liberal musings and can have a chuckle at, at how we're trying.
Yeah,
but really don't know what we're talking about.
No one's going to offer us a TED Talk based on this podcast.
No. Yeah.
Well, I have one last funny thing. We pulled this up on Prime Video, and it was classified as sci-fi.
Yeah.
Which was like, what? So, I would say fantasy at most.
I'm guessing that Prime has a single category called sci-fi / fantasy, and was getting cut off on the menu. Possibly. That would be my only guess, because there's no sci-fi elements at all.
And the director, Alfonso Cuarón, I don't know how to say that. He typically does fantasy stuff, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
That name does not sound familiar. I may love movies from that director and just not know it.
I think what did he? I think he's Mexican. I think Water for Chocolate is what he did. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I am not immediately familiar with the name.
Okay.
I mean, I know a lot of directors and am familiar with a lot of directors' names, but not immediately familiar. But yeah, I think it probably is just one of those. I don't think it's miscategorized. I think it's just they have a category that is way too broad, because I would put this movie into a fantasy context because of how heavily it relies on imagination themes and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say it's like 20% fantasy, but
yeah.
Can we talk about the sister for a second?
Sure.
Oh my God. I forgot about this whole subplot. Like, I knew that the
sister's pure comedy relief.
Yes.
From the very beginning.
And she kind of is in the book too. I don't think there is this plot where she's secretly in love with the milkman and they run away together. I don't think that's in the book, but she's very, like, her sister mismentioned that there's basically tall and skinny, short and plump.
Yeah.
The skinny mismentioned treats the plump mismentioned terribly. And younger mismentioned Amelia has internalized all this and it's like, oh, I'm so silly.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
They're like two of the three Cinderella stepsisters, like, because I remember one of those being like tall and skinny and the other one being short.
Yeah,
and fat.
Or I always think of the robbers in 101 Dalmatians. Jasper. I think they're described in the book short, fat, and dumb, and tall, thin, and dumb. Like, it's that kind of thing. But I feel like in the book, Amelia eventually stands up to her sister. And in this, we do not get that, but she does develop a spine and jump out of a window onto her beloved so they can run away together.
Right.
I did not appreciate the joke of like, haha, a heavy woman jumps out of a window and crushes a man, haha. But,
that's what I was going to say.
1995. I was going to say, what I can get.
It's 1995, so this woman's fat. That's the joke. Did you get it? She crushed someone.
She's not very bright, and like, aha, she's fat, and this guy likes her anyway. Haha, that's funny.
Right. So clearly there's something wrong with this guy.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. He's not a real man. Yeah. But I'm glad that she escaped. And I hope that she's,
That's all,
Yeah.
It's as forgivable as any of the trespasses this movie makes.
The actress, by the way, I kept thinking, where do I know her from? And I looked her up. Her name is Rusty Schwimmer. No relation to David Schwimmer. She was one of the love interests in The Perfect Storm.
I've seen The Perfect Storm, but I don't.
Irene, John Hawkes meets her at the bar, and they have this flirting over the song "Good Night, Irene," and she's like, "I'm a single mom. I don't have time for playing games," and he's like, "No, I really." But anyway,
yes,
that's the only thing I've seen her in. I think she's much more of a character actress than anything, but she's delightful in this. You're rooting for her, even though the movie is not treating her especially well. So
yeah.
I want a sequel about her and Francis and their escapades as milkmen.
Yeah. I also want a sequel of like Sarah, because like she kind of manipulates her into that whole thing.
Yes,
like,
I noticed that.
I want like a dark Sarah that is like using her powers not necessarily always for good.
Oh yeah,
and like because like you said, Sarah's too good to be true kind of thing. Like she even wins over the bully in the end.
That was really,
It was ham-fisted. And I think that's that. If I had one complaint about this movie, because I think overall the movie's fine, I would recommend it. It's in that vein, it's show it to your kids.
Yeah.
That is the one thing. So much of it seems rushed and ham-fisted, for lack of a better term, really. It is just then this happened.
Yeah.
Like there isn't any, like the last interaction she has with the bully is she pretends to curse her and tells her she shouldn't brush her hair so much. And then the bully brushes her hair one night and
there's hair in the brush.
A lot seems to come out. And then the next time she sees her, there's a brief standoff and then they hug and she loves everybody. And now not just does the bully like Sarah, now everybody likes the bully.
Yeah.
And the bully likes everybody.
I was like
it's
what?
Very,
yeah,
it's very, but it's a kid's movie at heart, I think. And so you can forgive a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. If I recall correctly, one of the earlier versions, was in 86, is a lot more true to the book and it's longer. It was on, did you ever watch Wonderworks on PBS?
Probably. That sounds familiar. That name sounds familiar.
They had, so the Anne of Green Gables movie, which we will be watching at some point, was originally part of Wonderworks. It was like Hallmark Hall of Fame, but on PBS and for kids.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of movies where I've never heard of them in any other context except Wonderworks, like completely weird stuff. But some good, some not good. But this was part of that, and it was like 2 or 3 segments, and so they go into the whole book.
The 1986 version, not the one we watched.
Right. So they go into the whole book, and I think there is more explanation about various things.
Yeah. And so, I think you always, like, that's always not always the better version, but it's the version that has the chance to be better. Like there's a version of Dune that the Sci-Fi Network did in the late 90s or around the year 2000, in which they really had the opportunity to go into not just the first book, but books after that and share a more complete story. Is it as beloved as the Dune from the 80s? No, and it never will be. But it is probably truer to the source material, much like there is a version of The Shining that it was Steven Weber in the role of Jack Nicklaus that is much truer to the book and has a lot of the weirder aspects of the book in it. And that's because it was a miniseries and it is just, so you're always longer form, you're always going to get a chance to do better. And I think it shows, but also there's something to be said about condensing stuff.
Yeah. It's a tough position to be in when you love a book and they make a movie or a TV series or whatever of it, because it's not going to be a perfect translation to the screen. That. But there are characters that you have to miss out on, or plot points or whatever that were your favorite in the book and you can't have them. And then there's the ripple effect, and how do you, and sometimes you're like, okay, this was really true to the book, but it didn't translate well, or this was good. This would be good if I hadn't read the book, but I have. So, what it could have been, it's always, Circle of Friends, which I would love to talk about on here, but I have not been able to find it streaming this whole time. When they adapted the book to a movie, they changed a major plot point. And everybody I know who read the book first hates the movie because of that. Everybody I know who hasn't read the book loves the movie. Like, the movie is quite good. There's a lot I like about it, but I cannot forgive it for this major thing. So that's the difference to me, is like, it's a good movie on its own, but it was supposed to be this, and it's not.
And it is so tough. I don't read at all for reasons that I'm not going to get into, but there have been a few times where a movie has been coming out and I know it's based on a book, and I think like maybe the audiobook, but every single time I've made the decision not to do that or to wait till after I've watched the movie. And I think every single time I enjoy the movie experience better because I have no information, going into Game of Thrones or, whatever, knowing Harry Potter, knowing nothing about the books. I feel like I can enjoy that experience for what it is as a movie experience. And then later on, if I'm so inclined, go into the book world, the book version of it, and see what's added and what's taken away, but when you're dealing with books that were written in the 1800s or early 1900s or just 1900s at all, yeah, a large amount of people have read them, and in fact, the audience that you're trying to sell this movie to are probably the people that have mostly read the book.
Yes.
So yeah, there's a real.
It's a tightrope.
Yeah, exactly. You are damned if you do, damned if you don't. Really.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Anything else about A Little Princess? I like to say little. Make sure I get the T's.
Little. You're enunciating.
Little.
My professor this semester likes to talk about writing.
Writing.
Not writing. Writing.
Not writing. Writing. We're writing today.
Charming. Like at some point it's going to annoy me, but so far it's just charming because it's only been a few times.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all we got. Folks, we would love to know what you think about A Little Princess. This version, previous versions, book version, anything. And, feel free to tell us that we're full of it about gendered parenting or depictions of imperial India or any of those things. We would just like
probably
to hear. Well, I'm sure we are. We would love to hear from you. Every so often we do have people comment and say, well, actually,
and we're like, yeah, cool, thanks.
And
thanks
I think, and we don't ever respond and say, hey, thanks, but we appreciate your
Sometimes
input.
we do.
Sometimes we do. We try. But if you would like to get in touch with us, you can do so in a couple different ways. You can email us, you can reach out on Facebook, or you can reach out on Twitter. Our handle is the same for all three. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. You can email us at gmail.com. You can message us on Facebook or Twitter, or you can look at our Facebook and Twitter feeds. Also on those feeds, we post links to all of our newest episodes and plus other, content that we just find fun that are related to the movies that we've watched. If you are not a fan of Facebook and Twitter and you just want to get the episode links, that's fine too. You can find us on most of your major podcast providers, specifically Apple Podcasts. While you're there, we would love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe. If you subscribe, you'll get the latest episodes right in your queue. And if you rate and review, then that helps other people find our podcast. We have new episodes every 2 weeks, every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there will be a new episode in the queue on Facebook, on Twitter, whenever that is. And our next episode, Dave is hosting. And what are we going to be watching next time, Dave?
Yes. Well, I have been looking at my list and reviewing the types of movies that I want to watch. I'm thinking about theme months and things like that. And one thing that I saw is there's a lot of like dumb, big budget action movies and things like that on my list. So I'm going to start clearing those out. I'm going to start getting rid of them.
It is January.
Exactly. That's when you usually dump the weird movies that somebody agreed to do in a little backroom meeting and probably shouldn't have. I'm going to start clearing those out, and we're going to start with one that I think is a perfect example of this sort of genre that I'm talking about. A big budget movie with some names that that is just over the top stupid, and it is the movie based on the Michael Crichton novel Congo.
Okay.
Congo. There's been a lot of Tim Curry on my feed lately, and we just recently watched Home Alone 2, which put him back in my mind as well. So this is one of his amazing performances.
Let me guess, he's very subtle and
absolutely,
low-key.
100%. No, barely know he's there.
No scenery chewing whatsoever.
No. So the next few times that I have a pick, I'm going to be just churning through these movies. So you're going to see stuff in the vein of this. I'm probably not going to pick Armageddon for this string, but like that, big blockbuster movies that had absurd premises and just were sort of weird and out there. So that sort of thing. My next 3 or 4 picks, that's what it'll be. Get us into the spring. So just weird, big budget movies that kind of, how did this get made kind of stuff.
Oh, great. Excellent. I love it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we will see you in 2 weeks with Congo. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.
Wait, before I go. The cat messing up my microphone. I don't know. Bye. Yeah.
Okay.
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 All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.